Here is the thing about smart people that nobody tells you. It is not what they know. It never was. The person who has memorized the most facts, who can recite the most information on demand, who scored highest on every test, that person is not necessarily the one who navigates life well. Not the one people instinctively turn to when something goes wrong. Not the one who stays composed while everything around them is falling apart. The real difference between someone who thinks well and someone who doesn't has nothing to do with raw intelligence. It has everything to do with specific, learnable habits of mind, ways of approaching problems, ways of handling pressure, ways of engaging with people and with information that most people never consciously develop. Not because they can't, but because nobody showed them what to look for. You do not need a flawless memory. You do not need a prestigious education. You do not need to have been born with something the rest of us weren't. What you need are 5 thinking habits that genuinely intelligent people use, almost automatically, almost invisibly, in situations that trip everyone else up. By the end of this, you will see exactly what those habits are, why they work, and how to begin building them today. And I mean today, not as an abstract goal, but as something concrete you can try the next time a real situation calls for it. Let's go. 1. They stop trying to win arguments and start trying to understand them. Watch how most people handle disagreement. Someone challenges their opinion, and immediately something shifts. Their posture tightens, their voice sharpens. The conversation stops being an exchange and becomes a competition. They are no longer trying to figure out what's true. They are trying to not be wrong. And there is a massive difference between those two things. The need to win an argument is one of the most expensive habits a person can have. It costs you information, because the moment someone feels attacked, they stop revealing what they actually think and start defending what they've already said. It costs you relationships, because people remember how a disagreement felt long after they've forgotten what it was about. And it costs you something even more valuable, the chance to actually change your mind when you should. Smart people do something that looks deceptively simple. When someone disagrees with them, they get curious instead of defensive. They ask real questions, not the rhetorical kind designed to expose flaws, but genuine ones. Help me understand how you got there. What made you see it that way? What am I missing? These aren't questions of weakness. They are questions of someone who cares more about getting to the truth than about being seen as right. And here is the paradox that makes this so powerful. When you stop fighting to win, you actually become more persuasive. When someone feels genuinely heard, when they can tell that you are actually trying to understand their position rather than dismantle it, they lower their guard. Their thinking becomes more flexible. The walls come down, and that is precisely when real movement becomes possible. Not because you overpowered them, but because you gave them room to think out loud. And sometimes when people think out loud carefully, they arrive somewhere different from where they started. You cannot force a mind to change, but you can create the conditions where a mind is willing to. Ask real questions. Stay genuinely curious. Stop treating every disagreement as a battle that needs a winner. The person who understands this has access to conversations most people never get to have. 2. They zoom out when everyone else zooms in. One bad test, and you think you're not capable of learning. One rejection, and you think you're not worth choosing. One terrible day, and your whole sense of stability starts to wobble. This is not weakness. It is a completely human response to immediate pain, but it is also a thinking trap, and smart people have learned to recognize it and step out of it. The trap works like this. Something bad happens, and your mind instinctively treats it as evidence. Evidence of your limitations, your worth, your future. You zoom all the way in on a single data point and build conclusions around it that are far larger than the data can actually support. One failure becomes proof of permanent inability. One rejection becomes confirmation of fundamental unworthiness. One hard day becomes a forecast for everything to come. Smart people do the opposite. They zoom out. They resist the pull of the single data point and ask instead, what pattern am I actually looking at? What is this one moment part of? And what does the larger picture actually show? They fail a test, and instead of concluding they are incapable, they ask what this particular failure is telling them. Maybe they need a different approach to studying. Maybe they need more sleep. Maybe there's a specific gap in their understanding that can be identified and addressed. They get rejected, and instead of absorbing it as a verdict, they treat it as information. What can they learn? What can they adjust? What can they try differently next time? This reframe changes everything, because when you zoom out, problems stop being verdicts and start being puzzles, and puzzles can be worked. Puzzles have solutions. Puzzles are something you can engage with, rather than something that simply happens to you. The question smart people learn to ask in moments of difficulty is not, "Why does this always happen to me?" That question sends you spiraling inward. The question is, what is actually going on here, and what within this situation can I actually influence? That question sends you forward. It converts panic into analysis. It converts helplessness into agency. And it is available to you in any moment, not as a talent you either have or don't, but as a practice you can build deliberately. One difficult situation at a time. 3. They refuse to spend energy on things they cannot move. This might be the habit that frees up more mental and emotional energy than any other on this list. And it is also the one most people most consistently ignore. Think about what you worried about last week. Not just the surface worry, the actual texture of it. The scenarios you ran in your head. The conversations you rehearsed that never happened. The outcomes you dreaded that were entirely outside your control. What your colleagues think of you. Whether the weather will cooperate. How your boss will be feeling on a particular day. What someone might say about you behind your back. Whether something you have no influence over will go wrong. All of that worry consumed real energy. Hours of it maybe. And none of it, not a single moment, changed any of those outcomes. Because you couldn't. The things you were worrying about were beyond your reach, and worry does not extend your reach. It just exhausts you. Smart people operate with a filter that they apply constantly and almost automatically. Before engaging with a concern, before letting it occupy mental space, they ask one question: can I actually do anything about this? If the answer is yes, they think about what to do and they do it. If the answer is no, they disengage. Not by pretending the thing doesn't exist, but by consciously withdrawing their energy from something that will consume it without returning anything. It cannot rain tomorrow. Regardless of how much you worry about rain, but you can put an umbrella by the door. You cannot control what someone thinks of you, but you can control whether you are honest and whether you are kind. You cannot guarantee you will get the job, but you can prepare until you have done everything within your power to be ready. The line between what you can influence and what you cannot is the most important line in any situation. Smart people find it quickly. They invest all of their energy on one side of it and release the other side completely. What this produces is not indifference. It is focus. It is the ability to direct your full capacity toward the things that can actually be moved, because you are no longer bleeding energy into the things that can't. That focus, sustained over time, compounds into results that look, from the outside, like exceptional capability, but from the inside feel like simply not wasting yourself on things that were never yours to fix. 4. They treat silence like a resource, not a problem. Most people are uncomfortable with silence in a way they have never examined. The moment a pause appears in a conversation, something in them rushes to fill it. Not because they have something important to say, but because the silence itself feels like a problem that needs solving. They speak to eliminate the gap, and the quality of what they say reflects that. It's unfiltered. It's reactive. It's the first thing that arrived rather than the best thing available. Smart people have made their peace with silence. They sit in it without anxiety. When someone asks them a question, they don't race to answer. They take a moment to actually think about what they want to say, and then they say it. When someone is speaking, they listen to understand rather than listening to respond. They let people finish their thoughts fully without interruption, and they let the silence that follows a finished thought breathe for a moment before they move into it. This changes everything about how they are perceived, and it also changes everything about how they think. When you pause before speaking, you give your mind the space to locate something better than the first thing it found. When you listen without interrupting, you receive information that people who are busy formulating their response completely miss. When you are comfortable with silence, you stop being controlled by the social pressure to fill every gap. and that composure reads, to everyone around you, as confidence and depth. There is a practical test for this that you can try immediately. The next time someone asks you something, but anything, count silently to 3 before you answer. Just 3 seconds of deliberate pause. Notice how different your answer is. Notice how the person asking responds to someone who doesn't rush. That small gap between question and answer changes the entire character of an exchange, and it is entirely within your control every single time. Silence is not empty. For people who know how to use it, silence is where clarity lives. 5. They choose their response instead of producing one automatically. This is the habit that, more than any other, separates people who are in control of their lives from people who are being controlled by them. And it is the hardest one to build, because it runs directly against something deeply wired into us. The automatic response is fast. Someone is rude to you and something rises immediately. The sharp reply, the surge of anger, the urge to match their energy and send it back harder. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and your body is already reacting before your mind has fully registered what happened. Something doesn't go the way you expected, and you are already in frustration or defeat before you have had a single moment to assess what is actually in front of you. Smart people have built a pause between stimulus and response. Not a long one, sometimes a single breath, sometimes just the fraction of a second it takes to ask one question internally. What is the best way to handle this? That question short-circuits the automatic response and opens up something more valuable: choice. Actual conscious choice about how to engage with what is happening. When someone is rude to them, they don't immediately mirror the energy. They consider it. Maybe this person is carrying something heavy right now that has nothing to do with me. What response actually serves this moment? Not what feels most satisfying right now, but what is actually the most effective. When something goes wrong, they don't immediately spiral. They pause. They assess. They ask what is actually true here and what is available to them. This is not about suppressing genuine emotion or pretending nothing bothers you. It is about refusing to let the first reaction be the final one without any examination. It is about being the author of your responses rather than just the vehicle through which they pass. The person who stays calm in a room full of people losing composure is not the person with no feelings. They are the person whose habits have given them space between feeling and action. And in that space, they make choices that the reactive people around them cannot access. That is not a personality trait. It is a practice. And it is available to anyone willing to build it. Here is what these 5 habits have in common and why they matter beyond the individual situations they apply to. None of them are about knowing more. None of them are about being louder or more aggressive or more impressive. Every single one of them is about how you engage with other people, with problems, with pressure, with your own reactions. They are habits of mind that create space where most people have none. Space to understand instead of argue. Space to see patterns instead of panicking at single events. Space to act instead of worry. Space to think instead of just react. Most people will spend their entire lives without developing any of these deliberately. They will keep arguing to win and losing the understanding that was available. They will keep catastrophizing single setbacks and missing the pattern that could tell them something useful. They will keep exhausting themselves on things they cannot move and having nothing left for the things they can. They will keep filling every silence and missing everything that lives inside it. They will keep reacting automatically and wondering why the same situations keep producing the same results. You do not have to be one of those people. Pick one of these 5. Just one. The one that you recognized most sharply in yourself as you read it. The one where you thought, that is exactly what I do. Focus on it this week. Not perfectly, not all at once, just consciously. Start noticing when the old habit surfaces. Start practicing the alternative in real situations, not hypothetical ones. In a week, you will feel the difference. In a month, the habit will have started to take root, and the people around you will notice something has shifted. Not because you announced anything, but because your behavior in the moments that used to trip you up will be unmistakably different. That is what real intelligence looks like when it is operating. Not a performance, not a score, just someone who has learned to use their mind the way it was, always capable of being used, and who built that capability, one deliberate habit at a time. You already have everything required to start. The only question is whether you will.